All right, look, I'm just going to say it. I think the Space Marine 2 gameplay just looks too good to be true, and now I even have a number of reasons for my concerns about this game to be actually increased. And you might be like, well, why? Why? It looks so good. Why would you be concerned? Why would you think it's too good to be true? Well, let's just start with the graphical fidelity. It's very clear when we look at gameplay trailers what they're focusing on, and this game undoubtedly is putting a lot of effort into what the game looks like. The lighting, the shadows, just the overall texture of the enemies and the world around you. You can tell this is a focal point. They want this game to look pretty, but not just that. There is a level of enemy density in this game. I can't get over it. They're everywhere. It's their own technology that even allows them to do this. Their actual engine is called the Swarm engine, and it's been built, in a proprietary way to allow them to have so many enemies on the screen at the exact same time. And I just feel like that's going to pose a very, very significant challenge to having a game run well, to having it optimized, and not having any performance issues. And then there's the fast movement. There is very clearly a focus on just allowing the player as well as the enemies to move very quickly. And when you put all that in a blender, I can't help but think most of the games I look at that look like this typically tone down the graphics. Now, Helldivers 2 is a good example, I think, of a game that hits what I think is pretty good fidelity and a cinematic feel, but the graphical focus is not as strong in Helldivers 2 as what I'm seeing in Space Marine right now. So there's the other element of the previews, though. So it's not just the Swarm engine and the fast movement and the enemy density and the graphical fidelity. There are previews available right now, and I made sure to watch Skill Ups. I didn't want to put words in his mouth, and he was not allowed to use his recorded footage. He had to use B-roll, and this is an older video from an older event. However, anytime there is a preview or a capture event and you don't let people use their own captured footage, I get a little concerned. It's just a miniature little red flag. It seems a little bit like, wait, well, why would you have everybody come out and play to then only talk about their experience? Not only that, he did actually highlight in his own preview that it didn't run particularly well, but at the time he thought, hey, there's plenty of time left, they'll be able to get this thing optimized. So now we have actual hands-on evidence that there were issues with the optimization of the game, at least, in the near past, whenever this game was being played by people. And now we have brand new developments, okay, adding to the concern about optimization as well as performance, and I want to walk through that. Now, every weekday here on Reforge Gaming, I tell you what I think about a gaming topic, and then we go to a live stream after this, because I want to hear what you think about this as well. So if you want more content like this, be sure to hit like and subscribe. The first and fairly recent development pertains to the game's canceled beta. Now, a canceled beta is not the end of the world, but it certainly adds credence to my own observations about optimization as well as performance challenges, especially when you couple this with what we already talked about, right? The previews, they didn't let them use their own recorded footage, and they did say that, hey, the game wasn't running all that well. So, what did they say about this canceled beta? Well, VGC has an article titled Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2 Open Beta Canceled, and the byline does give some assurances for folks. It says, players who signed up for the public test will receive a limited weapon skin. So, what did the devs say about this? Because I do think this is important, and this is what they said. Space Marine 2 is almost ready, they wrote. We are now entirely focused on optimization, polish, and fixing remaining issues ahead of the launch on September the 9th. This means we will not run a public online beta, as it would take the development teams away from preparing for the full launch, and our priority is to ensure the best possible experience at release. So, it's clear from this announcement that they are still dealing with optimization issues. There are still problems that they are facing. But I will say there is good things about this. It is both good and concerning. So first, why is it good? Well, it shows they're committed to optimization, okay? They're not just going to shove the game out. They certainly could have done that. They could have ran their beta, got the free PR, got everybody excited. Beta might have been a vertical slice that could have ran better than the full game. We've had that happen before. I remember the beta for Outriders actually ran better than the full game. So it's easy sometimes to sort of almost like trick the consumer into being confident in the game based off of a very small slice of the game that can be set up in a way to run in a way that the full game won't. And I think that's probably a good choice, right? It is better than a delay. I will say that. Now I'm going to talk about that in a moment because this could be concerning about it not being delayed, but I do think that is better than a delay. Look, if you can hit your release date and you can get the game out at quality, then don't do a beta. That's totally fine. It's also transparent, and I think that's something that should be celebrated. The devs are like, listen, we're focused on optimization. We've still got issues. The game's not quite where we want it, and we think the best way to get there is to not do a beta. They could have easily just sort of glossed over this and got everybody excited, and then the beta would have been celebrated, and then the game would have come out, and everybody would have been like, wait, what happened? So the last reason I think this is good is this is better for the game and the players. Because even if the beta would have come out and had issues and had problems, that might not be the best representation of the final product, especially if they were able to resolve some of those issues. It sounds like they don't really need to do a beta. They know what the problems are. They know what would likely be highlighted. So I do think this is better. But it's not just good. I do think some of this is concerning, okay? Mainly, it means they are still dealing with optimization very close to launch. We're 2 months away, okay? That's a very, very small amount of time in the development world. So I don't see this being this monstrous amount of time for them to just really resolve core issues. If there's something that is sort of latent to the engine itself or the swarm technology that's giving them trouble, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to resolve that in 2 months. The other reason this is concerning is it could mean that a delay is off the table. It's like, no, you're not delaying the game. Do whatever you have to do to get this thing out. Cancel the beta. This thing is shipping. So we don't know. This could be pressure from the publisher. We saw, Jedi Survivor could have taken more time and they didn't for whatever reason, and it took literal months. I don't even remember how long. It was somewhere between 4 and 6 months before it was even playable in performance mode on console. So this to me is just another red flag in a long line of them, because whenever I look at gameplay, that's the first thing I say is, man, that just looks too good to be true. That looks like it's going to be really struggling with performance. I've been covering gameplay trailers for a very long time, and this one set off some alarm bells, and then we heard from the previews, and then they couldn't use their own footage, and then the beta gets canceled. But the beta being canceled is not the only thing that recently happened. Sadly, a full version of the game leaked, and while the footage is sort of on a machine that's not that exceptionally strong, if you saw that footage, it was put on YouTube, likely not there anymore, I do think it is a glimpse into some things that are concerning, and I do have more info on the gameplay and hardware and what you could expect it to run like from somebody else who did get their hands on this as well. But before I get into that information, Focus Entertainment posted a joint response with Saber on Twitter, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to put it up here full screen for you. You can pause the video here if you want to read the entirety of it, but I'm going to highlight one thing that was said. They do seem to indicate that the build being circulated will be almost 1 year old when the game launches. They said the following: "We're saddened that this build, which will be almost a year old by the time we launch, is how some of our most eager fans will first experience Space Marine 2. So obviously, they're very disappointed and frustrated. I think leaks like this absolutely suck. You never want to see somebody's hard work sort of put out there into the public in the worst light, as well as just having spoilers and having people get to see things before they're supposed to. Now, I was privately told that the build being circulated is more recent. It's got a date attached to it from earlier this year, 2024. So they're saying it'll be about a year old by the time that the game launches, but the people that got their hands on it are like, it's actually not that old. So that adds to the concern that the optimization issues are pretty severe. I was told that the gameplay footage that surfaced on YouTube, it was running at 1080, 30 FPS on a gaming laptop with like a 3060 video card. So it wasn't the strongest of rigs, but I've been told that even on stronger rigs, it's landing in 60 to 70 FPS and running at 1080. So even on a stronger rig, a respectable gaming rig, this thing was running in the 60 to 70 FPS range at 1080. I was also told that the memory usage could pose a problem for the Series S. So why does this matter? Why does optimization matter? Why does, jittery frames and all of this? Why is this a concern? Well, first, it concerns the gameplay. A central aspect of this game is the swarming effect of the enemy. And if that's causing hitches and stutters and just poor performance, if it ever gets blurry or any of those things that can happen when there's too much going on in the game, that is absolutely detrimental to the gameplay feeling good. Another aspect here is that a core piece of the combat is fluidity. There is this sort of fluid motion of not just the enemies, but your character. And the minute things start sort of skipping or snagging, that can be massively harmful to the gameplay experience. I mean, it's obvious as well, I think, that there's a huge focus on visual fidelity. If you look at the lighting, if you look at the graphics, and if that focus is sort of dragging the game's performance down, it's hard not to say, hey, you guys really didn't prize the correct thing here. I've always said gameplay and the content loop, that is God. The game must serve that first. And when you have a game serving other things, so you can put out shiny, snazzy trailers to get everybody excited, that's not going to translate into good gameplay. The second thing this is really important about is this really concerns immersion. It's difficult to get into a game when it's having performance issues. I just simply couldn't play Jedi Survivor until they fixed the problems. Now, this wouldn't be the first game to do this, to sort of hit this snag of they focused heavily on certain things that just drug performance down. And yeah, it's really pretty if you stand still and take screenshots, but I want to be able to get immersed in a game like this. The combat loop, you can tell, it really prides itself on this moment-to-moment intensity, and that dies the minute a game's not performing well. It rips you right out of the game and just destroys the immersion. Now, there is good news in the response from the devs. They are committed to the release date. Now, obviously, that could be a bad thing if that commitment is being driven by the publisher and not the readiness of the game. If they're like, listen, this has to come out at this time, they're still committed to that release date in their announcement, which honestly leaves me a little torn in my conclusion. I'm going to be honest, in light of everything, including their own response, I am still concerned about how this game's going to run. It looks great, and I really want to see how co-op feels. That wasn't available during the preview event that we were able to listen to, but I think this is just the ideal game for me right now. Well, why? Well, it just looks mindless in a good way. I just love games like this where you can kind of shut your brain off. It's like a summer blockbuster movie, right? It's a double cheeseburger, right? It's just good to play a game like this. You don't have to put a ton of thought into it. You're not min-maxing. You're not chasing the best gear. You're just shooting aliens. And another reason this is perfect is it's co-op gameplay. I love co-op as well as PvE. That's another huge aspect here. I just love games like this that are focusing on this. It looks like there's lots of customization and lots of things that you can do. And just, again, it's got that mindless feel, and this to me communicates it can be played in short spurts. That's perfect for me right now. I don't have tons of time to game for long play sessions, but if I can play for an hour or two a night, maybe even convince my wife to couch co-op this game, because again, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that complex. Pretty straightforward. She likes games like that. She doesn't like games with like jumping and platforming, and if she has to hand the controller to me because we're looking at stats and picking the right gear, this game just looks perfect. And the good news is they canceled the beta, and they are committed to a polished and well-optimized game. So we get to hold them to that when it launches. But those are just my thoughts, and now it's time to hear your thoughts. You can do that in a comment below, or join us for the live stream that follows this. It'll hit a card here. It'll be in a pinned comment below the video as well. And if you like this content and you want more like it, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.